Hello there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. I am working with the July 2018 Simon Says Stamp Card Kit, and here I'm giving you a quick look at what was included. So I just want to preface this video by saying that I struggled a bit with this card kit. It's why I'm later than usual in getting these videos out. I am not a fan of the paper pack that was included. I still think it was a great kit, and I know, you can't make everybody happy all of the time. This was chock full of stuff and well worth the money that I spent on it, but I didn't feel like the papers and the stamp set and the stickers all went together, even though it was a lot of stuff included. So I sat down for a while and I tried to make everything work together, and then I just thought, I don't have to make everything work together. So what I ended up doing is I finally at the end came up with 15 different cards instead of my usual 10, and what I'm doing here is sort of separating these out into sections. So this first video is going to be focusing on just the stamp set, and I've added in some colored cardstock. And then I'm going to have another video that focuses more on the stickers and another video that focuses on the pattern paper. And I'm ultimately happy with what I came up with, although it felt like it took me a long time to get to a point where I had cards that I really was happy with and wanted to share with you. So hopefully, if any of you out there felt the way I did, I'll be able to give you some inspiration and some good ideas on how you can use the entire kit. So here for card number 1, I'm going to do a bit of repeat stamping. So I've got a Neenah Desert Storm panel here, and I'm using Simon Says Stamp Barely Beige ink to stamp out this watermelon. And there you saw I put down just a regular Post-it and re-stamped that. I'm just going to cut out that watermelon, and then I can place that down, move my panel over a bit, and re-stamp. I wanted that particular watermelon to be in the front of a row of watermelons. So I ended up sliding this over about 2 squares. That was about the distance between the points of the watermelon. And then here I'll move that over again, and I'll move my paper another 2 squares, just checking before I place that down. And then I'll continue that. That took me off of that edge. And then I stamped 3 more on the opposite side, again, just moving that mask as I needed it. Here I've just included the coloring really quickly. I'm using my Prismacolors and 2 colors of reds and 2 colors of green for the watermelon and the rind, and I'll have those listed on my blog post for you. So here I decided I wanted to add a pop of color using some additional cardstock, and I've grabbed some MFT's Poppy and I've trimmed that out into 1/4 inch strips. There I am just placing some 1/8 inch Scor-Tape behind each of those, and I sort of fell in love with these stripes. You'll see these continue throughout the cards. And I just think it gives a really great pop, and I tried to show you several different ways that you could space them and use them with different widths and mixing varieties together. So here you'll see I'm lining these up. I'm just using the lines on my, the grid lines on my mat behind there to make sure I keep them nice and straight. And I'll just peel away the backing and place all of those down. Here I'm going to create the sentiment for the front of the card, so I went with that "You're One in a Melon," and I'm just stamping that out using my VersaFine Onyx Black ink on some scrap white cardstock. I trimmed that down to a 2-inch square, and here I'm going to add that to some Limelight cardstock. And I'm just going to add about a 1/16 of an inch around all 4 sides of that, just to give it a little bit more of a pop and to pull in some more of that green from the watermelon. And then I also grabbed a sour apple card base, and I'm going to attach my panel. I did trim that panel down to 4 by 5 1/4. And then here I'll pop up my sentiment using some foam tape. And I'm going to place that down at an angle on the top of my card base. For the inside, I've got a Nina panel trimmed to 4 by 5 1/4, and I had a leftover stripe, so I'm just going to add that across the bottom, trim off the excess, and then I took that watermelon stamp and I'm just going to place that, just one of those, on the bottom corner there. I'll go ahead and add that to the inside of my card base. And then as a final touch, I grabbed my black Nuvo drops, and I'm just going to go over all of those seeds to give that a little bit of shine and dimension. And that will complete card number 1. For card number 2, I'm again working with these stripes, and here I'm setting up my base. So my card base is made from MFT's Eggplant, and the stripes are made from Pure Plum. So the top 2 and the bottom 2 measure 1/4 of an inch, and then that center panel there measures 1.5 inches. Just placing those out, again using the grid lines on the mat behind my card base. It's easier if your stripe is a little bit longer than your card base, but I'm running low on this plum cardstock. It's one of my favorites, and I actually only had card bases left, so I had to trim one of those apart in order to get the stripes that I needed. So it was a little more difficult, but I made it work. So here I'm going to do a little bit of sort of paper piecing. I'm using this Limelight cardstock. I'm just going to stamp the top of that cactus. And then here I've got, this is pineapple cardstock, and I'm going to stamp the whole thing there because I want the pot to be that color. So while I had my ink out, I went ahead and stamped the sentiment Stuck on You, and that is VersaFine Black Onyx ink. And then I went ahead and fussy cut out those 2 images. So you'll see for the cactus there, I just stopped at the top of the planter. And then there you can see for the pot, I just went slightly above that so that it have some space to glue the cactus down on top of. And I'll just place those together using my Nuvo glue. And then I'm going to pop that cactus up with some foam dots, and these are left over from the Love from Lizzie kit. And I'll place that down on my card base. For the inside, I used my Cricut to write out the sentiment, Your Succulent. I thought that went perfectly with that cactus. And I used the font Rumors with just the regular black Cricut pen. Here I've grabbed some lime green washi tape that matches that Limelight cardstock fairly well. It has just some white polka dots on it. Then I felt like it needed a little something more. Nope, I'm going to go ahead and add that on the inside of my card base. And then I felt like it needed a little something more, so I grabbed an extra piece of that plum cardstock, again trimmed to 1/4 inch, and I'm just placing that across the top there. And that will complete card number 2. For card number 3, here I'm stamping out this pineapple. I'm again going to do some paper piecing here. So I'm going to stamp first on, this is, let's see, Green Room cardstock, and then on Daffodil cardstock, and I'm going to fussy cut both of those. And then off camera there, I'm showing you that I had stamped another frond using Sour Apple. I decided I needed a little bit more color once I had placed these together. So there again, I'm using my Nuvo liquid glue, and then to add a little bit of texture, I'm using some 1/8 inch Scor-Tape here to add on top of those fronds. And then I'm going to place that on top, but I'm just going to put it slightly off from the other one so that you can see the darker green peeking out behind it just a little bit. I also then went ahead and stamped out those sunglasses, and this is on Gravel Gray. I again fussy cut that, popped it up with some foam dots, and I'm going to place that there on my pineapple. I took that remaining daffodil cardstock and I'm going to trim that into some 1/4 inch stripes here. And if you want to give this a try, you can of course cut these strips, however works for you, but if you're interested in this mini guillotine trimmer, it works absolutely great for this. I love that it has the 2 holders for your finger and thumb, and you can really keep that paper in place. It's great for taking even the tiniest little bit of a sliver off of something. So here again, I've backed those with some Scor-Tape. I'm going to peel away the backing and then place those down using the lines on my grid mat. Then I'll go ahead and trim off that excess. Here I'm working on my sentiment, so I just stuck my pineapple down there to use for some placement, and I'm going to stamp Your One Cool Pineapple, again using that VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I'm going to trim this white paper down to 3 by 4.5. Since I'm placing this on top of those striped lines, I'm going to use Scor-Tape behind that to make sure that I've got a nice tight stick since I've got an uneven background. And then for my pineapple, I'm going to add one of my mini wobblers behind that. So much fun. I love those. For the inside, I'm going to use again a Nina panel trimmed to 4 by 5.25. And here I've got some Lawn Fawn Sunshine ink. I'm just going to make a row of pineapples along the bottom there, and I'll alternate those as I go along. I'll place that on the inside of my card base. And that will complete card number 3. For card number 4, I'm going to do a little something different with these stripes. I'm working on a Night Shift blue cardstock, and my stripes are cut from Blue Raspberry. I'm going to add these on the diagonal, so I do each end of this slightly different. Here for this bottom end, I am leaving a full square in between each of the stripes and just lining those up on the diagonal at the corner of the stripes there. And then I flipped that around, and for this side I'm going to go on every square. So there's just maybe about maybe 1/8 of an inch in between each of those stripes. Again, I kept my numbers odd, so I left 3 on what will be the bottom corner and did 5 on the top corner. So here I'm going to stamp out some of those fish, and I am using American Crafts Apricot Pigment ink. And here I'm just going to quickly color those with one of my Copic markers. This is color YR04. And I knew I was going to fussy cut those, so I didn't have to be terribly careful about the lines or anything. There you can see I did fussy cut those out, and I've just laid them down for placement there. I'm going to stamp out this sentiment, "Fishing you a happy birthday." And I decided I wanted to emboss this. So here I'm just laying down some powder. And then I'll go ahead and stamp that out using my Versamark ink. I went ahead and heat set that, and I used Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail White Embossing Powder. And then I decided to add some of these bubbles as well. So I've again laid out my fish, and I did take my powder tool and I went all the way through that stripe there. And I'm just adding again with Versamark ink these bubbles, and then I will go ahead and heat emboss those as well. I wanted to give the fish a little bit of dimension, so I'm again using that 1/8 of an inch foam tape behind there. And then I will add these to the front of the card base. For the inside, I've again got a Nina panel trimmed to 4x5 1/4. I stamped out that fish using that American Crafts Apricot ink, and then added some bubbles using Lawn Fawn Mermaid ink. I'll place that on the inside of the card base, and that will complete card number 4. For card number 5, I am working on the doll pink card base that came in the card kit. And here I've got that Flamingo stamp. I'm going to stamp this out using American Crafts. This is Grapefruit Pigment ink. So I worked really hard going through here to make this as random as possible. And then I ended up covering up most of it with the white panel that's going to be on the front of my card, but I guess it was good for me to get the practice anyways. So there you'll see I'm just twisting and turning that to make sure that everything is sort of facing different directions and it doesn't look like a pattern. So here I'm going to take that Flamingo die, and I am cutting that out of Tickled Pink. And then I also cut that out of Pineapple. So there you can see I've trimmed off the legs as well as the beak there, and I'm going to paper piece those together, again using my Nuvo glue to attach those. I've got some stripes cut from bubblegum cardstock, and I've again laid those out in an odd number, and I'm attaching those directly on the top of my card base. For my sentiment, I'm going with the Beat a Flamingo and a Flock of Pigeons, and I'm again going to stamp that using that VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I'm going to use some Scor-Tape to attach that to the top of the card base, again using that so I can get a nice strong stick since it's going to be an uneven surface. And then I took the flamingo and I'm going to pop that up again using some foam dots. I'll go ahead and place him down on the top of the card base. And then I wanted to add a little bit of definition to his eye there. So I'm just placing one tiny black Nuvo drop there. For the inside, I'm again on a Nina panel trimmed to 4 by 5 1/4. Here I'm going to stamp that flamingo using American Crafts blush pigment ink. Then I'm going to add a stripe along the bottom. Here I'm using some thin washi tape. I ended up changing this slightly off camera. I had an extra stripe of the pineapple cardstock trimmed to 1/4 inch. So I ended up placing that underneath this washi tape. So it looks exactly the same. It just has a little bit of yellow underneath the washi. And you can see the pictures of that at my blog post. Finally, to finish off the front, I'm adding some sequins. This mix is called Snow Flurries and it's by Tailored Expressions. And I'm just placing that down there using some Ranger Multimedia Matte. And that will complete card number 5. Here is a quick look back at the cards from today. You'll find additional photos as well as a full list of supplies at my blog post, linked in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.